everybody. Welcome to the Technical Analysis webinar here with AvaTrade. My name is Troy. I'll be presenting. As we get started, keep in mind that there's risk involved with each trade that you take. So you want to manage risk in a way that makes sense for you. And we'll go over some ideas in that regard if we set up a trade or two. You'll see that in our order window, there are some tools that make it quite a bit easier to calculate your risk and manage exposure levels, potential profits, as the order window calculates those things for you. Also keep in mind that as we go over different ideas, that it's not meant to be taken as financial advisement, but coming from an educational perspective. Now, from our main website, we can log into the WebTrader platform, which allows you to trade on MT4 and MT5 accounts, but with the extra tools and signals and fundamental news, the economic calendar with the extra tools that are built into it. All of these things are there for you within the WebTrader. And also our app has all of the same functionalities as well, which allows you to trade also on MT4 and MT5 accounts from one location. Now, if we log in the upper right corner here, we'll be in the WebTrader platform. Now, before we jump into the technical analysis side of things, we probably should speak a little bit about what's happening fundamentally right now. There hasn't been huge news today in terms of anything unexpected. There were some announcements today that had pretty good numbers out of the United Kingdom. So the economic data kind of lends itself to maybe a strengthening a bit of the pound. With that, it would be about timing as well, obviously, and we'll take a look maybe at a pairing or two with the pound because they really did have some nice data on the economic announcements that came in. We still have lingering fears out there about tariffs. I think Trump has promised 25% tariffs on auto imports coming into the US to match the tariffs that some other countries put on US automakers products that enter their countries, whether that's in the European Union, other places that could be affected, and also other tariff threats that are out there. And when you look at it from a neutral perspective, you can understand where the U.S. is coming from, that they don't want to be charged, tariffs that aren't being charged the other way. And so this concept of reciprocal tariffs seems to have some justification, but at the same time is not what the world is used to. And there are fears that this could cause a potential trade war, maybe not with every country that tariffs are slapped on or raised on, but just with one or two could cause some problems, especially if it's with a country like China. So those fears are still out there. And then on top of it, just like the UK had today, the US had stronger than expected data on CPI, PPI data, all these inflationary figures that come out last week. They were all higher than expected pretty much out of the US, creating fears of high inflation again, and also the idea that maybe the US won't be able to lower interest rates anytime soon. And so today, in a couple hours time, we've got the FOMC meeting minutes being released. Okay, and so the minutes from their last meeting will show what their thinking and rationale is about monetary policy in the near and longer future. And I think that's creating some fear on the markets as well. We've seen that with the DAX pushing down, the FTSE as well, and the US indices all losing ground a bit today, leading up to the release of these minutes that most are probably assuming will be something similar to the FOMC statement and rate decision that occurred recently, where Jerome Powell said that they are not in a hurry to lower interest rates any further, and it'll be a wait and see type situation. And Wall Street's always hoping, the markets are always hoping for lower interest rates. It just makes the cost of doing business cheaper. It makes buying houses cheaper, etc. And so Those fears are there right now that those minutes that are released later today, not too long from now, may reinforce the idea that, hey, rate cuts aren't coming anytime soon, maybe any further in the US for the time being. So those fears are there. And so as we go into our technical analysis, we keep that in mind. Nothing new, really, but just regurgitated fears about lack of rate cuts in the US, about potential trade war fights back and forth with promised tariffs coming from the US on other countries. And there was a headline I saw just recently, literally in the past hour. Trump said something about Zelensky being a dictator because he's blocked elections since 2022, using the war as an excuse, and that maybe his poll numbers are low enough that he thinks he wouldn't win re-election, and so using that as an excuse to stay in power. I'm not saying I buy into that, but it's creating tension now between potentially the US and Ukraine while this whole negotiation is trying to go on to stop the war between Russia and Ukraine. So there's some fear about that, maybe running into some snags, which then just adds to the fear that's out there potentially about lack of interest rate cuts in the US and potential tariff wars. So interesting times, but those are three factors maybe creating some fear today on the markets. So with that said, let's take a look at some charts and maybe some technical signals if we have any. The US 500, I see we've got a live signal on this. So let's take a look. Looks like we've got some new graphics in our platform. I like the flags being added. That adds some nice color. Not that it's going to help you trade any at all, but I see we've upgraded some of the graphics on our platform. By the way, you should notice that more and more features are being added to our web trader each month, each quarter. I've seen a number of them come in, different tools, different indicators, different abilities to remove charts into new tabs, etc. So you can play around with the platform month to month and find new features and ways of being able to do your technical analysis a bit easier by being able to, like this chart, we can detach. If we push this button here, we can detach the chart from the platform and open as many charts as we want separate from the platform. So that's a feature that's nice as well for those of you that like to have multiple windows open, and you can trade from each window as well. Okay, so all right, looking at the signal that's here. US 500 was a buy signal. Looks like it's saying the market has already reached one key level, so it already climbed to the take profit zone. Okay. There was initial dropping today and then a bump back up, so it'll be interesting to look at the chart and see where things stand now. So a lot of times when you've reached the take profit on a buy signal, that's a spot where there's resistance. That's why that's the spot where the buy signal said to take profit. And we see that here. It's labeled resistance right here. These green lines are the take profit zone. So this might be an opportunistic spot to potentially go the other direction because we already reached the take profit zone and the buy signal. It was a successful signal. And now we have multiple things that we just talked about that are creating some fear on the markets right now. Now, we don't know for sure what those FOMC minutes will show, but we can anticipate maybe that it will be similar to what was talked about with the rate decision that occurred recently in the US, where they did not lower the interest rate, they kept it the same, and they talked in ways to kind of diminish expectations of any further rate cuts anytime soon. So, and since then, some high inflationary data came in out of the US with CPI and PPI data being higher than expected. So this all leans towards maybe the minutes creating a little bit more fear on the markets. And if that's how you feel, I'm not saying you have to feel that way, but if that's how you feel, then you might be looking at a short here to take advantage of this high spot, this high climb that occurred in the past few hours that started today with quite a drop. Then we have a bounce, and now we're back at the resistance level up here. So that signal came in after the drop, caught a nice support level down here with the technical signal to buy and came to fruition already. Why did it say to take profit at that spot? Well, we see the resistance level here. So let me go to maybe 2-hour candles, and we see this resistance level up here, and I can just slide some of the lines I already drew up, okay? And we see a support level maybe down here, okay? So resistance and support. We see that ever since this climb, it's been weaving between this support level and this resistance level. Support, resistance, support, and maybe still resistance, okay? So if you believe the fear is going to kick back in, like it did from here to here just 4 or 5 hours ago, then technically speaking, this is opportunistic. So if I'm selling on this, and this is where the risk calculation features of our order window really makes it simple to do your risk management. So take profit, I could say just above this support level maybe, and so around 61, say 28, 61.30. Okay, stop loss above the resistance. So 61.58 is this resistance line. So 61.60, something like that, would get me above that resistance level. Okay, so risking about not a third of the potential profit, but less than half. So almost a 3-to-1 ratio, not quite. Better than 2-to-1 ratio, possible profit to possible loss. Okay, then we can adjust the trade size to be the amount of risk that you're comfortable with. So, you know, if I'm comfortable with, I don't know, around 1% of my balance, or you know, whatever percent of your balance or dollar amount that you're comfortable risking, then you adjust the trade size to be at that level. So if I do half a lot, now I'm risking 450, which is quite a bit less than 1%, but more than 0.5%. So somewhere between 0.6 and 0.8%, something like that risk. So less than 1% risk on my account to make well over 1%, almost 2% potential profit. Okay, so I can get my possible loss calculated for me to my stop loss and my potential profit. Now I take a look and I say, okay, I sell. And so now my stop loss was up here at 61.60, okay, above the resistance. My take profit is down here at 61.30, above the support. So to hit my take profit, I don't have to break any support levels. And it looks like it's trying to push down right after taking it. That could be good timing. And in order to hit my stop loss, it does have to break this resistance level. It has to break through here, which it's been unable to do so far today, testing it once and dropping, twice and dropping, 3 times and dropping, and now a 4th time starting to push down. We'll see how that goes. Perhaps this could get down to the take profit before the FOMC meeting minutes are even released. We'll see. But that's technically speaking, that's an opportunistic entry point, because we're right below the resistance level. Okay, and so resistance, here we come down and take profit down this way. And we could look at smaller candles just to see that dropping off the resistance, which we see here. Okay, here's the resistance level up this way a little bit. And we see this pulling down. And it's easier to see the resistance on those larger candles, 1-hour candles. Pull the chart down just a little bit. And here's that resistance level. Okay, we'll see. You know, the FOMC meeting minutes creates volatility. This could decide to spike above this, in which case take a small, less than 1% loss on the account. We'll see how it goes as we go through. I've got a couple trades running. Looks like a crude oil trade is in the money from earlier. I'll just go ahead and close that for now. Take a couple hundred profit on that one. And we'll let this one run from today's session. Okay, so I don't see any questions popping up. By the way, you can ask questions at any time. Just type them in the in the little chat box there, and I'll address the questions as I see them. Okay, so we can also switch categories. You know, what's something that rises when there are fears of inflation, fears of tariffs, etc.? Safe havens like gold, maybe. Okay, let's take a look and see. I'm not saying you have to buy on gold, but the fundamentals feel like they support gold maybe pushing back up. We see gold drop today for the last, I don't know, 8 hours or so, and found some support right here. Okay, I see support here, back up, support here, bouncing again. So if I'm going to buy on this in the direction that I think the fundamental news should go, then I need to take profit at a spot that makes sense to me, which could be today's high. It was up here at 29.46 not that long ago. So it doesn't even have to break today's high to go to 29.46. Stop loss below the support level here that's held twice in the past day or two. So 29.20 would get me there, get me a few dollars below. Okay, I could go 29.21 with the stop loss, and that puts me at 2-to-1 ratio. Okay, and 21 is well below this support level at 29.2372. So 29.21 is down here. Okay, so stop loss below the support level, take profit right up here before the high point. And so going after 5,169 profit, risking 2,300, maybe I take a little smaller trade to risk the amount that makes sense to me. Now I'm risking below 1% to make about 2% plus. Okay, so again, the order window did the calculation for me as I adjusted the trade size. My entry and exit prices are determined by the technical analysis. Support level here, resistance level here, bouncing off the support like it did here before going up and like it did here before going up. So the technicals are on our side. If you trust the support level, then it's a no-brainer that you'd buy off this. If you think there's fundamental reasons for that support level to hold, it makes it an easier decision. I feel like there might be some fundamental reasons for that support level to hold, but you have to feel that way, obviously. I think some of what's going on that we talked about at the start of the webinar in terms of fundamentals, I think that supports maybe, you know, gold having reason to climb as a safe haven. Okay, now, because those minutes are being released soon, that could create volatility, and certainly this could spike down before it goes up, right? So you have that risk that you could hit a stop loss before it potentially could rise further. So to diversify this strategy on gold, what we could do is do another buy position if you think it'll go up, but that it could first spike down. And I could also take a position with AvaProtect. That way I don't need to put a stop loss until my protection is about over. So if I do 1 day's protection or 2 days protection, okay, then I take a trade size that the cost of the protection is around that 1% that I'm willing to risk per trade. So half a lot costs me, the protection costs less than 1% of my balance, and I could wait a full day through the meeting minutes all the way to tomorrow at 1700 my time before this protection ends. So it could spike down $30 an ounce, $50 an ounce. As long as it goes back up before my protection ends, I still profit. And if it does go way down, the protection pays me back everything I lose during the protected time period. Okay, I'd only be down this small, less than 1% of my balance anyways. So then I look at the chart and I say, okay, if this does go flying up to 29.46, what would I make? Okay, quite a bit more than I'm paying for the protection, but since I'm protecting for a full day, I don't have to look at such a quick take profit. I can look at 1 day candles, and I could start to look, okay, if this does break 29.46, that's all-time high territory. So there's no resistance level up here. Where's the next round number? 3,000? I've heard talks about 3,000 for a long time that, wow, it looks like it wants to go to 3,000. We'll see if it does. Not saying it will, but since I have a full day's protection, Maybe I go to $29.95 just before 3,000 an ounce. Okay, I've seen gold go up $100 an ounce in a short period of time in the past. So if there are huge fears of inflation after the meeting minutes are released, there could be a huge reason for gold to be able to make a really big move. So now I'm looking at over 3,300 profit, which sounds really nice when I'm only paying $528 for protection. Okay, and I can even do 2 days protection. Doesn't cost that much more. 740. It's a little more than 1% of my balance, but I get double the protection time. Now I could just lower the trade size a bit, 0.4, and now I'm around 1% again. 592, 561 would be 1%, but now I have 2 days protection, and you know the profit in the end could still be over 2,600. Okay, if it goes, and that gives me 2 days for that, maybe to push towards that all-time high up above there, and maybe towards 3,000, who knows. And I think that makes more sense to me. This is a little bit longer term move. Okay, now my protection goes all the way to the 21st at 5 p.m. my time. So I'll go ahead and I'm in on that. Okay, so now I'm hoping for a technical breakthrough here of this resistance level, the all-time high, with the meeting minutes maybe being the stimulus, or trade war fears being the stimulus, and who knows if this could push towards 3,000 even. We'll see. Okay, this distance from where the price is now to here is not much different than this breakthrough here that then climbed up to where it is now. Didn't take long to do that. So we'll see. But it's a unique way for those of you who haven't used AvaProtect to diversify your risk management and your trading patterns. So we've got the US 500 moving into profit already, up over 100 profit or so. These others just getting going, the ones on gold. We'll see how those go. Let me pause for a moment. Any questions, comments before maybe we look at one more chart? Okay, I don't see any questions popping up. By the way, I didn't even look. I don't think I did. Was there a signal on gold? There is, okay, and it's a buy signal. Okay, so we're in line with the signal without even looking at the signal. That's when maybe you trust the signal, right? So I would always advocate that if you like the trade-off of our signals, first also review what the most recent fundamental news is. Which way do you think the wind is blowing? And before looking at that signal, we were already saying, well, it feels like there are reasons for gold to rise. And so if there's an opportunistic entry point, maybe that's the direction you would go. And then we look and we see the signal says buy, as long as it's above the pivot line. We see it temporarily went below the pivot line, which is why it says here that we already reached one of the key levels, that key level being the support level, the pivot line. So once it broke below, the buy signal's off, but we're back above that pivot line again. So this is a live buy signal from just above the support level, okay? And they're looking at take profit at all-time highs as well, 29.50 to 29.65. Be a nice take profit area for the trade that we just simulated. We have 2 days protection, so on that trade we're trying to be more patient to see if it would go towards 3,000. But remember, we took 2 gold trades, so there's one with a stop loss that if this pushes up right away, there's no protection cost on that one that we paid, so we could take a quicker take profit near this zone, 29.50, 29.65. And in fact, we programmed the take profit just before this resistance, right around 29.46, right about here. Okay, so we followed exactly what the signal says to do without looking at the signal. We saw the same resistance level around 29.50, programmed our take profit at 29.46 or so on that first gold trade. The second one, we've got to take profit higher because we put AvaProtect on there for a couple days. Okay, so always nice sometimes to work in reverse to see what you think when you look at the candles, then go back and see what the actual signal is from Trading Central, and if they align, then maybe you trust that signal because it's in line with your own thinking, especially if the fundamentals are in that direction as well. Okay, so What else could we look at? We could look at some major indices. The DAX has just been amazing in terms of the bull run that it's had up, even while other indices weren't going up. But we see that that has finally pulled back. If you stretch something upward far enough, eventually it snaps back, at least for a short period of time. So with the fears about the meeting minutes out of the US, about potential trade war fears, tariffs coming, finally, if for anyone who was trying to short the DAX, finally it's let loose and dropped a bit. Okay, it's actually down enough today to give back the last 1, 2, 3 or 4 days worth of climbing, wiped out now in a short period of time. So unlike the NASDAQ and S&P 500 that dropped earlier today and then bounced back up, leading to this minutes release in the US, the DAX has not bounced back up. We see that it looks as if it's continuing to spike down. And so we see the 1 hour candles, look at that drop. This looks like a strong sell-off, and I think this is leaning towards the trade war fears and the tariffs that might be coming on the European Union. I mean, 25% tariffs on European car exports coming into the US, that could cause some pain, okay? And so, amongst other things, it's not just the cars that might get tariffs slapped on them. So this, I think, the dam breaking here with tariff fears is my guess why the European Union, the German DAX is having so much downward pressure compared to maybe some other indices. Now, if we take a look then on 4 hour candles or 1 day candles, it's broken this support level. I mean, we see here, that's broken. This was where this 1 day candle held. It held sideways and then went up from there. It's come down and just crushed that support level and went right down. So if you were going to short this with the downward momentum, you can see a spot where your stop loss would be back up above that broken support. If it goes back above there, then the fear disappeared, right? As long as it doesn't go back above this broken support level, then it's going to act as resistance, and this could keep dropping to the next support level, which could be somewhere like this. Okay, this was resistance, 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 and then finally broke above and became support. So this is the next spot, just above 22,000, where this could push down to. Another 400 points down to that next support level. Doesn't mean it will, but it looks like it certainly could. Okay, so then if we're going back on the 2 hour candles, we can see I put my stop loss here if I'm shorting this. So if I'm selling the DAX right now, I'm probably putting my stop loss here. This is a confirmed break of a pretty major support level right here. And the next support level isn't until down here. You could cheat this up to here and say, okay, this is an old resistance that maybe if this drops to this level, this might act as support here. So I'll cheat it up a little bit there. So I'm looking at stop loss 22,593. Take profit 22,210. Okay, that stop loss and take profit is determined by the technical analysis. Stop loss above this broken support up here, and take profit before having to break below this support level. So I'm looking at risking 2,800 to go after 5,000 potential profit. So now I just need to adjust my trade size to be a trade size that makes sense for my risk tolerance. So 0.4, risk's about the amount I'm comfortable with, around 1% of my balance, and going after near 2%, a little less. Okay, so I sell. Now you might say, well, you're selling from a low point. Look at all that dropping. It would have been nicer to sell, I don't know, 6 hours ago or 8 hours ago, 2, 4, 6 hours ago, we were up here. Okay, you don't always get the perfect entry point you want, but what you can find is broken support levels confirming a continued downtrend, which is where we're at. And then use that broken support as a resistance level, because whatever caused it to break below here still exists. and it might have trouble going back above. And that looks like it still has momentum and doesn't find support if it does drop till about here on the candles, as we look at 2-hour candles. So you have to sometimes ignore the past and look at the most recent technical breakthroughs and go with the direction of momentum, especially if that direction of momentum is in line with the current fundamental news, which it feels like it is. Okay, so as you look at the climb that went up, you might have said, well, why would I buy from here? It's gone up so much already. But as soon as it broke the resistance, technically that means buy, and look, it kept going up, even though you were buying from a high point. Same thing on the way down. You can sell from a low point if the technical support and resistance levels show you that the momentum's continuing in that direction, and also if you feel the fundamental news is on your side in that direction. Okay, and so we've got 4 trades running now. One of them, 2 of them in profit. Look at the US 500 trade, already over 300 in profit. We didn't pay for any protection on that, so I'm going to go ahead and take 325 profit. I have no risk whatsoever on that. Close, 300 profit in the pocket. Now that covers almost all of my risk on the German trade, which is already in the money. So I'm almost trading free on that. And we'll see what happens there. And then we have to be patient with the gold. Maybe we get stopped out on the gold trade with the stop loss, which I anticipated could happen. But we've got that backed up with 2 days protection on that, on a second buy position on gold, to see how that comes through. But so far so good. It looks like we've got a good read on the fundamental momentum right now, as things are moving into profit pretty quick for the time being. Okay. All right, everybody, I think this is a good place to stop. I haven't seen any questions pop up, but I see nobody dropped out since we started, so it must have been interesting for you. Thank you all for joining, and good luck with your trading this evening and the rest of the week. Bye for now.